this. Imagine you have a scale of 1 to 100. With 100, 100 being somebody is going to die, right? So where does this fall on that scale? And so often the things that we just got bent out of shape about, they're pretty close to the low end of the scale, right? Well, she just called me a bitch. Okay. Well, okay. So either it's not true or maybe it was true for that particular moment, right? But the fact that she called me a bitch, and pardon my language, I'm just giving you some examples here. That compared to somebody dying, that compared to her killing you, it's really pretty small. So, once you have done this, you've figured out what your triggers are, you know what the signs are, that it's beginning to happen, and you're paying attention and you're noticing, and then you can use those techniques to cool you down, keep you cool, calm, and in control of things. You have just freed up your prefrontal cortex. You know, I talk about this all the time, and to this day, I still have trouble with coming out. Can we call it PFC? Prefrontal cortex, okay? You have freed your prefrontal cortex. That's it. I think if I do it fast, I'll be all right. Then you freed it up to make conscious choices, to keep you in control, not that pesky amygdala, which, like I said, is a 5-year-old brat. So what is all this, and I mean, essentially, you're getting your brain to work for you instead of against you. Now, the amygdala is working for you, right? It's trying to keep you safe. But it's sometimes trying to keep you safe from something that really isn't that big a threat. And in the process, it's wreaking havoc and creating a whole bunch of mess that you're left to clean up, right? So what does all this have to do with emotional intelligence? Because Madeline sort of advertised that I'd be talking about emotional intelligence. Well, in a nutshell, it involves the first 2 of the 4 main pillars of emotional intelligence, which are self-awareness and self-management. And the last 2, which are social awareness and relationship management, can only happen once you've got the first 2 down, right? You can't be socially aware and manage relationships if you don't have yourself under control, first of all. So that is an important thing. So, any questions or comments before I wrap it up? Everything you never wanted to know. Thank you.
Beth, would you talk for a moment about the purpose of habit and how habit comes into it? That we learn certain responses and
great, thank you. And when I have a longer time, I talk about that, but I decided not to rush it and get
What's the question
today.
What's the question?
What's the role of habit and the learned responses? And it's a great question, because we do have responses that are automatic, right? And we think they're automatic and that we can't stop them. Well, wrong. We can always change those, because those are learned responses, and many of them we learned way back when, maybe when we were 5 years old, from parents, teachers, friends, peers, siblings, worse yet, right? She says who never had a sibling when she was 5 years old, but that's okay. I've seen it from others. And so we have to make some conscious efforts to break that cycle and to create new habits, new learned responses to use. And if we practice it on a regular basis, consciously and thoughtfully, we can, in fact, learn to react automatically in a different way. And I know that for a fact, because I do tend now to do the deep breathing routine a whole lot more than I did, years and years and years ago. I learned something that that's valuable, that has stood me in good stead, and so I really make an effort to make that the first thing that happens instead of the, getting really upset and saying something unpleasant. Thank you, and great question. Anybody else? Yes,
That's a question, as a comment. When I started using that, I realized that when I get upset like that and get stressed, I wasn't breathing at all.
absolutely. Yes.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
When you get really upset and uptight and tense, you may find that you're not breathing. We tend to hold our breath. And that is the worst possible thing to do. And doing the deep breathing, again, it breaks that cycle and it gets it more conscious. And deep breathing does amazing things for us. Amazing things for us in terms of breathing. Yes, Dolores.
Well, I'm just curious as to, does aging, get older, have to do with the way they control themselves?
I didn't even listen to that.
Now, your amygdala is being retrained so that you're a little bit more within the front. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm not sure that it's the amygdala getting retrained, okay? I think the amygdala, that's why it's still behaving this way after millions of years of human history, because the prefrontal cortex, other parts of our brain do have the capacity to learn and to create new neural pathways. The amygdala is pretty much what it is, okay? But what you've done is to create new neural pathways so that the amygdala isn't totally in control. And yes, aging and maturity certainly play into it. I know some people who are advanced in age who can lose it with the best of them. And can say things that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. What is he thinking? That kind of thing. So yes, we do learn, but it's not the amygdala that's doing the learning. It's still there, it's still in operation, and we have to be conscious in order to keep it from hijacking us. So that's the really important thing. Well, so let me wrap up, because I think my time is probably pretty much gone. So we may not always be able to choose the situations we find ourselves in, but we can choose how we want to show up in a situation. And our goal is to allow our brains to do the best that they have for us instead of the worst. If we let that amygdala hijack, the results are guaranteed to cause us problems of one kind or another. It just depends on the situation as to how bad it is. And we can then make conscious choices and ensure that we are using the thinking part of our brain instead of being just reacting, being under the orders of the amygdala. Okay, thank you very much. And thanks for your
Thank you, Beth. Great.